Joining us now, State Senator, second in command for the Democrats in the Senate, the conciliary to the Godfather, Dick Saslaw, Don McEachin, and he is a candidate for Congress in the newly configured 4th District, my district. That's why I got him on, because this guy is going to be my congressman. I got to get a good relationship with him. So when I go up there, he's going to see me in his office, right? And Don is running for Congress. Now, to give the other candidates their due, we always do this. There is a Democratic nomination process, and that'll be decided in a June 14th primary, open to all voters. Doesn't matter who you are, all voters in the 4th District. And the 3 candidates are Senator Don McEachin, Chesapeake Councilwoman and Dr. Ella Ward, and I believe Elliot Faust, although missing in action, can't seem to find him. If anybody finds him, ask him to call me, as we can't seem to find him. Somebody told me he was a candidate. I have no idea. Don, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you again.
All right, so we got you as the favorite to be the nominee, and I think if you are, you're likely to win in the fall. So you'd be representing our district. I want to get to the budget issue, because the last time you were on, and I got to tell my audience, I was very impressed, Senator, with your grasp of the issues. I threw everything at you but the kitchen sink. You had it all. So I'm like, this is, he knows what's going on. So we've got this budget thing going on again, and it's the same old story, and we're trying to get something done. Nothing happens. It all gets put off, and then you go to November, and then everybody says, we got to pass a budget now, and then you get this big omnibus bill with all the corporate welfare goodies in it, and you have to pass it at the last minute, because if you don't, the government shuts down, and nobody wants that. If you're in Congress, are you committed to getting a budget process that is flushed out, that's early, that people can look at and debate, so that we can get out of this November shut the government down rat race?
No doubt. I really believe in transparency. I think that's been a hallmark of my tenure as a member of the Virginia General Assembly. And I'd like to see a budget process that people can actually follow, that starts early enough so that people can pay attention and understand at least the fundamentals of what's in the federal budget. I don't pretend that we can create a process where every nickel is understood, but the big ticket items ought to be understood, and I would certainly be in favor of that.
So, Senator, let's get to some of these corporate welfare things that go on in Congress, where I think conservatives and progressive like yourself might have something in the middle. And the first thing is, we look at things like the Export-Import Bank. We look at the omnibus bills that we pass that have guaranteed bailouts in them for various companies, where the government is picking winners and losers. If you're in Congress, is that something that you're going to take a hard look at, and why or why not?
Absolutely. And, the way that's sort of begun to play out on the campaign trail is through these so-called free trade agreements. What I'm going to be interested in seeing is fair trade agreements, where the problem with the free trade agreements as they are right now is that our trading partners don't share our values necessarily. They don't share our same workplace values, our same concerns about the environment, our same concerns about how much people are paid to do work. And when you don't share those values, it's easy to undercut us and undercut the American worker. So I'm interested in seeing fair trade, where we're trading with partners who are willing to accept our values, or are willing to elevate their game to accept our values.
Okay, so we're talking about accepting values, but let's get to the corporate welfare. Like, you take the Export-Import Bank. Chances are you got elected at some point. That's going to come up again. Is that something that you would take a very hard look at? Because a lot of people see the Import-Export Bank, and they say this is just corporate welfare, tax dollars guaranteeing low-margin loans for giant companies that are parking their money offshore, right? I mean, how does this make any sense for the American worker?
Well, John, I'm going to be honest with you. That is an issue that I'm going to have to study. If it is as you say it is, then absolutely that's something that is not acceptable. I know that the Export-Import Bank is the subject of a great debate on Capitol Hill, and it's an issue that I'm going to have to study and get caught up on.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get to corporate inversion. Senator McEachin, companies that create shells overseas and then park their money. We just got wind of this with the Panama Papers coming out. We have this trade deal with Panama that basically is a paper deal that allows U.S. corporations to open up shop in Panama, which is basically put their money there and avoid U.S. taxes. I mean, isn't that just wrong? How do we stop that?
That is absolutely wrong, and we have to put in penalties, and it's probably going to take the form of taking away some of their tax breaks to bring that money back on shore. There is no reason why an American corporation that takes advantage of our relative stability, our peace, and our prosperity should take their monies elsewhere, park them offshore in an attempt to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. That's got to stop. And I think that's something that I would hope that all people in Congress agree upon, because it is the American people that are getting ripped off in that scenario.
There's a movement underfoot by some of your colleagues or potential colleagues, Senator McEachin, in Congress now to increase the federal minimum wage. This has been done in several states. Obama did it for federal government contractors. What's your position right now on increasing the federal minimum wage?
I'm supportive of increasing the federal minimum wage. I think it needs to take place over time, but I am supportive of that.
Do you think there's many people who say that's an entry-level wage to get people started, and if you did that, we have a shaky economy as it is for younger people, and then if you did that, that would actually make jobs go away. So then how would you respond to that?
Well, I would respond, John, by saying that's what folks say every time we increase the minimum wage, and that hasn't happened. Ever since the minimum wage was conceived of, that has been the argument to try to defeat it or blunt it. And I would suggest to you that history just doesn't bear that out.
Well, that's a good argument, because you are correct. And I know there's a lot of our audience out there, small business owners, that think, an increase in the minimum wage, it's always going to be a job reactive negative disaster. But, what you're saying, facts bear it out. When it's been increased $2, $1 over time, you really haven't seen that. Now, I think if you go to $7 to $15 like they did in, I think, Seattle, obviously you're going to have a fallout. That's just too big of a jump. But what is it now, $7.25? I mean, that is subsistence wage. I think went to maybe $8.50. I doubt there'd be that much of an impact over it. And the argument that I have for people that say they shouldn't increase the minimum wage, my argument is then, why do we have it at all? Right? We have it for a reason. You wouldn't be in favor of just eliminating it. So you have it for a reason. So if you have it, why wouldn't you increase it over time? Does that make sense?
I think that does make sense. I think, though, that those people who are against the increasing the minimum wage, a number of them at least, would be in favor of eliminating the concept altogether. But again, I would suggest to you that's wrong. We have to have certain workplace protections for folks, and that includes protecting their pocketbook. And I would emphasize too that you being kind enough to call me a senator and all that sort of thing, but I'm a small business owner. I own a law firm. We have to deal with these. We have to deal with these sorts of issues every day, and so certainly I understand by supporting an increase in the minimum wage, and I do support it to $15.15 an hour over time. That's something that will affect my business as well. But I think my business, as well as other small businesses, will do just fine in that environment.
Well, look, at the end of the day, if you want good people, you have to compete in the wage market. And if you have good people like, we do in our company, you want to make sure that they have a livable wage and that they're happy and they get raises, and otherwise you're going to lose them. So I think the thing plays out. Senator, let's get to the debt. Right now, $19 trillion. We have, by conservative estimates, Senator, $100 trillion of unfunded mandates. And it's just a huge number. Now, Senator, in the Virginia General Assembly, fight, you compromise, and you balance it, and life goes on. We've got approaching a $20 trillion debt in the United States. $20 trillion. What is the number that's going to get your attention? Because obviously,
that's got my attention.
your
and look, I think we need to reduce our deficit, but I think the key is to do it with some balance, and to make sure that we're not balancing the budget on the backs of the working poor or the middle class. And I would suggest to you that the balance can't be all cuts. It's going to have to be some revenue enhancement as well as some spending reductions.
So would you be in favor of a compromise package that included entitlement reform, straight spending reductions on discretionary spending, along with a tax increase?
I don't want to speak in generalities like that, because what entitlement reform to you may not be entitlement reform to me. And, if we want to talk about Social Security, I'm happy to talk about that. I'm not going to be supportive of increasing the retirement age. I am going to be supportive of cost of living adjustments, and if necessary to keep the Social Security solvent, I'm going to be supportive of increasing the tax on the tax on workers who put into Social Security. As you know, at a certain point, in a given year, if you make over a certain amount of money, you're no longer taxed on that amount, that increase for Social Security purposes. I would be for increasing that if it's necessary to keep the Social Security solvent. But that being said, I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the budget. I want to roll up my sleeves and make sure I understand it. But in general terms, yes, I understand that they're going to have to be cuts. I also understand that they're going to have to be revenue enhancements. And where we do that and how we do that, at least for me, will be guided by those principles I just articulated. We're not going to do it on the backs of the poor or the middle class.
But it sounds like you would be willing to raise taxes or fees along with spending reductions in a real effort to get the debt down, or at least start by getting the debt to stop rising, right?
Right. And I would remind your listeners, I know it's not necessarily an audience that necessarily wants to hear this, but remember, at the conclusion of the Clinton years, we were on a trajectory to eliminate the deficit. It's only because of the Bush tax increases, the Bush tax cuts, that we fell off that trajectory at the same time that we were starting a war in the Middle East. We have shown our ability to do this before. We're just going to have to roll up our sleeves and make the tough choices and do it again.
Well, truth be told, Clinton's tax and budget plan, I think it was, I'm going back from memory now, I think it was 93, if I believe. It was before Gingrich, so it was 93. He had a tax increase in that package. They did start to run surpluses, and when you start wars and you cut taxes, then you're going to go and drive debt. So on that, you're 100% correct. Final question. I want to get into national politics, Senator. Right now, who do you think is going to be the Democratic presidential nominee?
We have two excellent candidates, but I believe that it's going to be Hillary Clinton.
Okay. And who do you think is going to be the Republican standard bearer?
I am absolutely perplexed. I don't know who the Republican standard bearer is going to be, but if you twisted my arm and forced me to bet, I'd still bet it's going to be Donald Trump.
All right. Well, we're on the same page on that. I think it's going to be Clinton-Trump. Now, running in the 4th District, Clinton-Trump, you would be the second name on the ballot. Under Clinton, do you think that would put you in an enviable position, or do you feel all of these Trump people coming out and maybe there's an upset?
There's not going to be an upset in the 4th. And Hillary will end up being the president of the United States, as well as carrying Virginia. When you look at the 4th Congressional District and you look at how it's presently constituted, it was voted in the 60 percentile range for the president. The same thing for Tim Kaine, and in his worst year ever, where Democrats were getting knocked off left to right nationally, and he barely held on against Ed Gillespie. Mark Warner would have carried the 4th in the 58 percentile range. So it is a district that's reflexively Democratic, but our challenge is to always justify that with good policy good communication, and not taking anything for granted.
All right, these are the two tickets. Clinton, Tim Kaine, Trump, Whitman. You heard it here first. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. We want to thank State Senator Don McEachin for being with us, running for Congress, 4th District. You can vote for him, Democratic primary, June 14th. Thanks for being with us, sir.